Is insane crazy strength one word?
We can make it one word. It's our show. We can make it what we want.
It is one word. You just run it all together. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Drugs and Stuff with Dave Crosland. I'm Scott McNally, and all of our programming, it's brought to you by you, the people of Patreon. Thank you guys for your support. We are brought to you by evalbloodanalysis.com. You can get your lab work done by Dave if you're in the UK, and STROM Sports Nutrition for those of you in the UK that need some good health and performance supplements. They've got some great health stacks, especially if you're on cycle. Supplementsource.ca for our Canadians. They have great deals that change week to week. I saw some All-Max pre-workout today for $10 freaking on closeout. So jump over and grab that. You can't afford not to buy it. And of course, TrueNutrition.com. Use our code THINKOVER at True Nutrition for high-quality third-party tested supplements. They're the first company that ever supported what we call this podcast, Dave. What do you think of that, man? How's it going?
I'll send you a picture.
What's this? Let's see. This is a picture of a guy in a boat.
Someone said they wanted to see my boat, so there you go.
Who's the guy?
That's Phil who was teaching us.
Phil was teaching you. Dude, that's your boat.
Yep, so that black bit at the back is the cab.
Oh.
And he stood on the front.
So where are you? When you do, because you podcasted last week from this boat.
So I'm roughly, do you see the two skylights?
Yes.
So first thing you see is the solar panels.
Yep.
Then you see the satellite.
Oh. And then those are the skylights in front of that.
So I'm in between the skylights and the satellite. That's where my office is on the boat.
That's wild, man. So you're literally, it's kind of like an RV, but in the water, really.
Yeah, it basically is, yeah. I mean, it's 70 foot from one end to the other, so...
But like what, 15 feet wide, did you say?
14.3, so effectively, yeah.
That's wild, man. I wanted to let everybody know, guys, thank you for everything you're doing with the contest for iTunes. We've got a bunch of people who have been leaving us 5-star reviews, and if you leave us a 5-star review on iTunes for the month of September, you are automatically entered to win a free t-shirt. And Dave, we've had a bunch of people who are sending in their pictures for the transformation contest. I think you're going to be surprised, man. We got some stiff competition here, dude. There's some legit competitors in this, man, and a lot of these guys got in really good shape, too.
Good.
I'll start sending those over this week. I'm just waiting to see if we have a few more people that need to get pictures through. And then you and I will sift through them over the next week or so. And then from there, we'll have to bring in the big guns. Zach Kahn, if we can get him, or we'll find somebody who can be the ultimate decider. We'll narrow it down to the top 3. And then we'll have a guest that will determine the overall winner.
Now, do we want a celebrity guest to judge who has a knowledge around bodybuilding like a pro bodybuilder, or do we want a pro bodybuilding judge to judge?
I think celebrity. Okay. Would be best if we can do that. Yeah. I think that'd be good.
I can get an Olympia judge to judge if you want to.
Really? We should just get an Olympia judge on the show and just and berate him about why the placings are the way they are. Be like, you didn't have my guy first.
she doesn't judge anymore, but it's a female, but she doesn't judge anymore. But she's very experienced.
Okay, yeah, I've wanted to do that. I have a couple numbers of people that do judge the current Olympia, and I've thought about trying to get them on to not. They have to be careful because they can't really show any kind of favoritism, but they could at least talk to us about how the judging process works and stuff like that.
I think that would be good, particularly around the differences between the classes and the judging of the classes, because I think a lot of people get screwed up on that.
Yeah.
And they don't see how someone who may be a bodybuilder doesn't place as well in a classic class and really should be in 212 or open, depending on where they are. I think that would be really good, actually. Because, the female classes, I've judged for years, and the female classes still do my head in.
Yeah. So, hey, we have a bunch of listener questions, as we always do. And, man, we've got a fun topic to start with. One of our listeners came up with a pretty creative idea. So, last week, you had mentioned that, different steroids, different compounds were invented because they have different effects. They were basically trying to modulate testosterone so that maybe it would have less side effects or have a particular benefit that test didn't. Anyway, so here's what he says. He says, I've got a challenge for you guys for the next podcast. You touched on how each drug is similar, but also had unique properties, which is why it was created. Use 3 potentially different words to describe these compounds. So basically, we have to come up with 3 adjectives, I suppose, to describe each of the compounds, and he has a list of 8. So the first one is simple. We're starting at the basics. Testosterone.
Now, are we doing 3 each or 3 collectively?
I don't know, man. What do you think? It depends on how depends on how smart we are and good we are at this. If we need to work together as a team, then then so be it.
And it's one word. We just got to say one word that describes the.
Yeah. What's a word for like middle of the road? Because that's what I think test is. Is like what's a middle of the road?
So I would say test. I would say all rounder.
All rounder. Is that one word?
Yes.
Okay. All hyphen arounder.
No,
okay.
all rounder.
Is
so
that
it's a general all round good anabolic. It's not specific really in any direction. It's the unmolested base of what everything else is.
Yeah, yeah. We call it like the meat and potatoes, even, I suppose.
Yeah, so it's a good all rounder.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got that. We have to. I mean, this is getting tough. So already, I'm thinking we probably want to come up with maybe 3 together as a team. I think that's the best we can do for you guys.
Aromatizers.
Yes, aromatizes.
Well tolerated, or baseline, or base drug, or something along those sort of lines would be.
Yeah, foundation. Foundation.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. The next one, trend.
Divorce.
Exactly, that's a good one. Okay, trend, divorce. I'm also gonna say. So I got a couple, and they're gonna contradict each other. Peeled and full or jacked. Jacked could really mean a lot of things, I guess. But like my thought is that you can get absolute like on trend. Obviously, diet guys. We all know diet's the foundation. You're not going to get anywhere without diet. But with trend, you can push that to get extra hard and nasty, grainy, and at the same time be very full. Dude, you add trend into a cycle, and like all bets are off if the scale is going to keep dropping. You know what I mean?
So I would say powerful.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Consequential.
Ooh, Dave went deep on that one. You made me think for a minute. I like that. You ready for the next one?
Harder than I thought it was going to be.
You did really good. I'm leaning on you for that one. All right, next one. Masteron.
DHT.
Yeah. I'm going to say grainy. Dude, I'm going to tell you something, Dave. I had this. It was a blend. Test prop, test mast. 50 test prop, 150. Mast ethate, mast propionate. That's what I meant to say. 50 prop, 150 mast ethate. And I never used it before. And it's what I had. So I was like, okay, I'm going to start it a little earlier than I would the probe for my contest. I started it at 10 weeks out. And I was like, I'm going to front load this a little or something. I can't remember, but I went higher than I would have. And within like 5 days, all of a sudden, like I saw all of these just nasty striations come out of my chest. Like I'd flex my pecs and all these fibers just lit up. I was like, oh God, 5 days ago, I couldn't see any of that. So I'm going to say greeny.
Okay, I'm going to say performance.
You see mast as a performance compound?
I see now I'm talking performance in an athletic sort of standpoint, not as in a strength standpoint. So I see I see mast aiding with technicality in performance, yes.
I use it in those situations. I have a guy who is in the police academy. He's a little older, and he just started up a little mast, and it's definitely going to give him some benefit.
No, he didn't. He didn't, Scott. He didn't do that. No, Scott.
I made that whole thing up.
Yes, you did.
I didn't name names. I didn't name the country he was in, because Australia can be really strict about those things.
Non-aromatizing.
That's a great point. You guys in the live stream, you're welcome to join in too. Oh yeah, we had a couple people, and Brandon did say test. He said foundation, so that's good.
See, I go more properties, you go more end results, which is probably a quite balance, actually.
Yeah, okay. I think we're getting into a groove here. Okay, next one. I kind of feel like we're getting a little redundant here. Primo bowling.
Shit.
Faked. Well, not faked anymore, but me growing up, man, I always knew Primo's being faked.
Overused.
Overused. How about 3 letters three letters HDL.
Yes. Anti-estrogenic.
Yeah.
Mild. In every aspect.
Yeah, mild is a good word. I like that.
Sophisticated, but we are starting to get quite technical there.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot. Now we're getting into a groove here, I think.
Yeah, as a chemical compound, it's very sophisticated. If you look at the chemical structure and what's been done to achieve it, it's actually a very technical drug. And
expensive.
It probably from a developmental point of view around anabolic steroids, it is probably the peak of steroid development in how far they've managed to manipulate a compound from its base compound, and also how successful they have been at achieving the goal that they set out to do with it.
Yeah,
because they were looking for to create a drug that was less impacting and less negatives and all the rest of it, and it's that's been achieved very, very well. We've said this before time and time again. It has its place. I think it's overused. I don't think it's an off-season drug. I don't think we should be adding in anabolic for estrogen control. I think if we choose an anabolic, then that's a secondary action. That's all well and good, because you want the primary action of that anabolic, which is its anabolic value. Yeah. And Primo, to me, only really comes in a prep and muscle-sparing sort of environment, or in a long-term exposure environment. If I was bulking, Primo would be the last drug on my list.
Yeah. Here's what I think. If I were to go back and do it all again, so that first cycle of mine was 15 milligrams of D-ball only, I would have done, after that, instead of getting into test and D-ball, I would have maybe gotten into like test and Primo and rode that out, test and Anavar, seeing what I could do with a milder, because I agree with you, mild. See what I could do with that before I jumped into the heavy stuff. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, I mean it serves its place. At the moment, I just think it's overused.
Hey, shout out to Tanya Miller. She's with us right now, and she says, "Oh hey, get me through the rest of my fasted cardio." Tanya, it's 10:00 in the morning.
What time did you get up, you lazy woman?
I think she's further west than I am. So,
it's 3:00 in the afternoon, girl.
Yeah, you're just waking up. She's on stripper hours, okay? How about this? Next one. Halo.
Hard.
Yeah, I'm going to say Is insane crazy strength one word?
We can make it one word. It's our show. We can make it what we want.
It is one word. You just run it all together.
Anger.
She's justifying it. She says, I don't need to be up early, and I closed at work. It's 10:42. So, all right, fair enough. Fair enough. She was up late.
We're just jealous.
Yeah. Anger. It's a good one. I've always looked at it as a finisher, last 10 days into a contest, something like that.
Someone's just put happiness.
There you go. You see Suma, happiness. I mean, it means the end of the shows, the end of the contest prep is right about there, at least from my world of bodybuilding. If you're in powerlifting, it might mean something else, Had you... Oh, go ahead.
Respected. It needs to be respected is what I'm meaning by that. I don't know the best way of having a version of the word respected to say that, but it's not a drug you want to be flippant with.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, yeah. Had you used Halo, right?
Yeah, now, I don't know the reason for this, and I've never been able to find out, and I have tried to and come to some conclusions. So, M-Tren, Halo, check drops, nothing.
Really?
Not even all three of them, no aggression, I felt a little bit different, but no aggression, no increased focus, none of the expected direct effects. I wasn't really lean enough to say that there was any change in hardness and things like that because I didn't have the condition to say where we were with that. But I used them as performance enhancers, to actually try and use them as a pre-workout sort of setup, and nothing. And I went up to 2 grams of M-Tren.
I remember you saying that, man.
I might have even been 2.5, to be honest. I lose track. I can't remember.
So I only took the oral, but I did 250 micrograms, then 500. When I got to 750, that's when I started getting basically overheated. It was summertime and I was overheating and just, I couldn't handle it physically. It was too much heat.
I mean, obviously we you can argue that the drug quality wasn't there, and that could very well have been possible. I think the M-Tren was decent. I can't really comment on the Halo or the check drops, but I never got any of the so-called out of any of them.
I'm going to tell you what, man. Through every contest that I competed in, I took Halo. And honestly, I took it because I felt like I looked great. I got, my thing was I could get in really good condition. And I would always take Halo at the end just to get a little bit more. And I now question if I really had needed to do that. When I first started coaching, everybody would, if we had it and they were willing to take it, we would add in a small amount of Halo at the end. I haven't done that nowadays. If somebody wants to use it, we still will use it. And I do have guys use it. But now I'm thinking to myself, sometimes it's man, you know what? You can only get so hard. If we've reached peak conditioning, there's no sense in adding Halo because it's not like you're going to get any leaner. And it's not sometimes you're so lean that getting any leaner or harder isn't going to be the thing that wins the show. You know what I'm saying? If you're at 100% conditioning, getting to 101% conditioning isn't going to change the fact that the guy next to you has a smaller waist and rounder muscle bellies. You know what I mean?
No. Yeah, and I think we've always had a bad habit of we do things because it's the done thing.
Yeah.
And people are scared to step out of that. And particularly with comp prep, because obviously if you fuck that up, the consequences are far greater. Where if you make a mess of drugs in the off season and you get water retention or something, that doesn't really matter. You can sort it out. But a week out from a show, you don't have that luxury. So I think people are scared to change the tradition.
Yeah. So I've gone to more experimentation with Anadrol and Superdrol for guys that already are super conditioned, because my thought is hey, why don't we try to focus on getting as round as we can instead of trying to push for more condition. Mr. Chambers says Halo toxic?
I don't like using that word.
It's freaking toxic, dude.
Yeah, I prefer stressful.
Yeah, stressful.
I do use it, but I try not to. It's when I don't think I'll use it, but I actually do prefer stressful. I think it's more accurate.
Yeah, I've seen ALT and AST jump into the triple digits.
Easily.
You know?
They do that with Anavar, to be fair. I've seen Anavar put ALT at 150.
Yeah. 150 is not. I guess saying triple digits isn't, we'll say
200, north of 200.
Yeah. I've seen higher than that. You know, I've seen
I've seen it in the threes of orals.
Yeah.
Now that I would be wanting to action against, something that's starting to put your alt into the 300s. I would want to be doing something about.
And I definitely think you're probably, if your liver's under that much stress, that's gonna. I wouldn't expect you to look your best either on stage. Then
There is, and I think it's something that people forget about is that when your body is overly stressed, it will actually reflect in how you look. Maybe not reflect in muscle size, but it will reflect in like skin quality. And we've discussed this before. You see guys that look drug tired.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Because they've done too many shows. They've come down. They've stayed down too long. Wherever it is, they've not lost any size. They've not lost any condition, but they don't look fresh. They look tired. They look doggy, and it shows. And it's something that's difficult to put a single finger on what it is.
Yep.
But there's just a look that looks like it's overdone.
Yeah. If their eyes are yellow, then you know. That's how you know. All right. Next one. One of your favorite compounds, Dave. Deca. 3 words to describe Deca.
Anti-inflammatory.
Yeah. I would say bulk. Because that's what I think of. When we don't really use the word bulk as much anymore. You know what I mean? But when I think of Deca, I think of like full-blown bulk.
Yeah. Joint.
So you're still on that anti-inflammatory kick, huh?
Well, I mean, you've already said bulk, and that's the biggest one, isn't it? If you want a word associated with Deca, it's bulk. It's a bulking drug. It's what it does. To me, it's probably the best drug there is for bulking. So now we could look at the negatives, so we can go heart.
We could say, if I were to just say the word wiener in conjunction with Deca, I think that probably would sum up some, how about floppy? Floppy. How about that? Floppy.
I struggle with that one because, to be honest, for most people, it's nothing to do with Deca. It's just that they're shit at managing drugs.
Yeah, but it's a common, you know what I'm saying, though? Like,
it's
so common they call it Deca Dick,
It's common because, this is the thing. So you get Deca Dick primarily from a lack of prolactin management or a lack of estrogen management, yes?
Yes.
You get erectile function problems from using testosterone for high estrogen, but we don't call test dick, even though it's exactly the same scenario. That's what pisses me off about it. But, I mean, memory, heart, floppy, but bulk. Fucking hell, what a list of words, eh?
Yeah. Have you ever thought of strength with Deca? And I ask you this for a reason. When I first learned about Deca, it was reading an article by John Romano I think it was in MD magazine. And he told this story of being on a 4-wheeler, and he was like out riding a 4-wheeler, and this other guy got stuck, and he was with his girlfriend, and he was like he was on Deca, and he was feeling really strong, and he helped this guy out of the situation, and he like felt like he really impressed the guy's girlfriend kind of situation. But I specifically remember him saying, "Oh, when the Deca kicks in and I'm on the leg press, I can just keep pressing, like my legs are like a piston, and they just keep pressing and pressing. That's when I know the Deca kicked in."
I've always favoured Deca as a strength drug, and yet technically, when you look at numbers, it shouldn't really be, because it's not a massively high androgen. So you wouldn't expect it to be super great at producing strength, but Test and Deca is probably the backbone for the bulk of most strength cycles, and then moving more into tren as you get towards a comp peak and stuff like that. So, yeah, I find it a very good power drug. But like I said, the numbers say it shouldn't be.
Yeah. All right. How about EQ?
Horses.
Yeah.
Appetite.
I never get that, man. I always wanted it.
No, not everyone does. Not everyone does. I get that. But bloodlet.
Yeah. Phlebotomy.
Liver weight.
Liver weight.
EQ increases liver weight. Doesn't seem to have any negative impact, but it does physically increase liver weight for some reason.
Huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's one of the weird things. I don't ever get what bothers with it because there's no impact. There's no negativity around it. So
does it shrink back down?
I don't believe so, no.
I wonder what my liver weighs. We'll find out one day.
I can find out for you, mate. I mean, unfortunately, I'll probably have to tell you what it is via a glass board with some moving things on it. But
yeah. I can... One day they'll know. One day they'll know. EQ. I want to say, yeah. I would also say like vascularity. It's probably from like the increased blood, but I get crazy vascularity on EQ.
If you're lean enough, definitely.
Yeah. I like the fullness. All right, one more. Deanabol.
Breakfast.
Of.
Champions.
Done. Easy.
Wet.
Yeah. Pumps.
I find D-ball very win this, trying to pick words, and I'm looking at the same words we use for test.
Are you? Because I feel like D-ball it satisfies my instant gratification, number one. You take some D-ball, get in the gym, boom, that D-ball is giving you some incredible pumps, especially if it's injectable. I'll tell you what, have you ever heard of people having a good sense of well-being on D-ball?
Yeah.
Like specifically with D-ball.
Oh, I plenty of people will report like a general positivity with D-ball only or test and D-ball or test only cycles, and it only seems to be predominantly with those two compounds. But then I don't know if that's part to do with when people use it as well, because test and D-ball are very much the introductory drugs. They're the sort of drugs that people use early days. Maybe not as much now, but traditionally. And most people will find their first 2 or 3 cycles to be very positive in general. They'll be quite positive. And it's only when you start moving further down the line that you tend to find that positivity starts to wane a little bit, and it doesn't happen the same. I mean, I remember my first cycle, I thought I was superhuman.
Yeah. You kind of are. You know what I mean?
I was getting by on 5 and 6 hours sleep, felt friggin' amazing for it. Every workout was stronger, better. Everything was better.
Yeah.
Get to cycle number 2000 and whatever, and I generally just do it.
It's more of the same, real strong. I hope I don't hurt myself today.
There's improvements in the gym performance, but outside of the gym performance, don't really see that vitality improvement that you did in the early cycles. So,
yeah,
I think some of that is tied into the fact of where people commonly take these drugs.
That had the word cankles.
Yeah. In the line of, when we use drugs in a history of drug use. But I think with test and debo, part of why they are generally not overly negative, apart from the estrogen management element of it, is the fact that they have this balance of their test effect and their estrogen effect.
Yeah.
And then when you start going into any other drug, their aromatization rate is different. So it's like Deca's only 20%, but you've got this prolactin kick. DHTs don't aromatize at all, so you're not getting estrogen from those drugs. And I think that's why they don't have that same vitality factor that test and debol does.
Yeah.
Because that's how we're designed to operate. We're designed to operate on test and estrogen. Obviously, when you start pushing doses higher and higher, they start to get to a point where they're that high, they become negative in how we feel. But yeah, I think that's part of it, because when you look at the drugs we use, they're the only two drugs that sort of balance in their effect on test and estrogen. Debol's a little bit more estrogen heavy.
Yeah.
But everything else is very screwed when it comes to that ratio.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was a fun game. I think that was a really great idea, wasn't it?
Who won?
What do you mean? Was it
Well,
a contest?
I thought we were competing against each other.
Oh, I thought we were working as a team, Dave. See, this is the way Dave sees the world versus the way I see the world, guys.
Not at all, young man. Not
that was a
at
fun
all.
game. That was Jared, by the way. Thank you very much, Jared, for coming up with that great idea. We have a guy named Alex in the live stream who is he just jumped in to plug his gym.
Yeah, Alex is all right. You leave him alone.
He just jumped in to plug his gym. That's like when you're like a guy who's doing the weather. You know what I mean? And somebody jumps in the background. They're like, AW Muscle Fitness. You know what I mean? That's what he just did.
Well, he was all right to chauffeur you around the country, even though he terrified you with his driving.
Yeah, he's a scary driver. I'm going to tell you that much right now. Only rivaled by you, Dave.
Oh, you wait. You're going out in Brandine next time you come, shitbag.
We're taking the train. We're taking the Harry Potter train to Scotland. That's
you are, but you're going to call at mine, and I'm putting you in Brandine.
I don't know what that is.
That's my pro straighter.
Oh. Well, as long as we have a track, we'll be good for that.
No. We're going down the street in it.
You guys hardly have streets, man. Like, they're made for little go-karts like my Mini. They are not made for full-size American vehicles. They were designed for carriages, a lot of those streets, Dave.
Well, to be fair, yeah.
All right, guys, we do have a lot of listener questions. By the way, if you're new to our content, let me encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell, because we have several podcasts that come out each week. We can get you through your cardio just like Tanya. We can share with you education, and we can make you laugh sometimes. Right, Dave?
If you're new to our content, we apologize.
Yeah.
It is always this shit.
But thank you for watching. Please hit the like button, comment, all that stuff. And you guys can comment with questions for the next show, because we answer your listener questions. In case you guys didn't know, Dave is an expert witness for the court system and an educator to the police and military in the UK. Did you know that? Hey, what's up, guys? I have a lot of people who reach out to me on a regular basis who are trying to more effectively reach their goals. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is that they're not getting enough protein. And there's only so much chicken breast we can eat through the day, but we can easily add a high-quality protein supplement to boost those numbers up. True Nutrition has just about every protein powder you can think of, from high-quality whey isolate. If you don't tolerate lactose, then you could use their beef isolate, or you could use their pea protein isolate if you don't eat animal products. They literally have everything you could think of. I've believed in them for like a decade before they advertised with us, and they never went out of their way to say like, hey, we want to promote our stuff through you. I literally asked them because it's a company that I believe in, and at the end of the day, I want to see you guys reach your goals as effectively as possible. So if you use our code THINK at True Nutrition, you'll get some savings, you'll help to support our programming, and you'll get some high quality products to more effectively reach your goals faster. All right, so we do have a lot of listener questions. You talked in the last episode, and you've talked about it before. You've suggested the idea of using P5P to combat prolactin with Deca. So the question from Dragon is how long would it take high dose B6 P5P at 450 milligrams to lower prolactin? My prolactin is 875 mLu. What's ml?
That's high.
Okay. And test is 34 nmol. I don't know nmol.
Yeah, that's so our upper limit's 29.
Okay, and estrogen is 220 pmol.
Yeah, that sounds about right for that level of test.
Okay.
Right. So he's not taking any nandrolones, I take it, from what he said.
He doesn't tell us what he's taking, but he says no issues with gyno, but it's obviously an issue that I want to get my hormones run again.
Right. So a little bit off topic, but there's a reason for it, so bear with me.
All right.
So prolactin will elevate with stress. Using drugs cause an element of stress within the body. Prolactin will elevate with estrogen. So as estrogen increases, prolactin will increase as well. And prolactin will increase with a lowering of dopamine engagement. So how NOR19s impact prolactin is that they reduce dopamine transport proteins, which means you don't get as much dopamine hitting the receptor, and that causes prolactin to elevate. Now, prolactin caused by dopamine interference is very impacting on how we feel and on sexual function. Prolactin that's elevated through high estrogen or through stress is not as impacting on how we feel. So you can have someone with prolactin, you could get two genetically identical individuals and have a prolactin level in one with 600 that's just from stress, and a prolactin in the other from 600 that's from Deca, and the one from Deca will have side effects. They will have problems. P5P does lower prolactin. It doesn't work very well if you're trying to fix a prolactin problem from a NOR19. It does work better if you take it prior to using the NOR19. So if you're planning on going on Deca or Tren, do a couple of weeks of P5P before you start the cycle. That will then have a positive impact. If your prolactin is just elevated from estrogen or stress, then P5P can work very, very well. So in this situation, I'm assuming that it's stress, though it is quite high for that. So as a result, then the P5P should have an impact within a week or two.
Okay.
If it also sounds like he's not experiencing any sides, because he says he wants to get his numbers in range, but he's not complaining of any actual issues.
Yeah, he says no issues with gyno or anything like that.
Yeah. So there is another thing as well, and it won't do him any harm to lower the prolactin. But you've also got to, we can be quite bad at treating the numbers rather than looking at the numbers and the effect. And a prime example of this is estrogen. He's got estrogen at 220. He's not reporting any estrogen sides. So I wouldn't be super bothered about lowering his estrogen. If he feels good and he's progressing well, then I'd leave it where it is. Where a lot of people would automatically look to lower estrogen just because it's above range. And so you've got to look at the numbers. There's no denying that, but you've also got to take that in relationship with what you're experiencing.
Here's an interesting little tidbit I had no idea about. Mr. Chambers says, also prolactin can be elevated with vaping.
No, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I didn't either. He said, which a lot of bodybuilders do nowadays. So I just looked it up, and I see a study from the National Institute of Health. It says plasma nicotine correlates with increased prolactin release.
Now, is that a stress response? Is that because it's causing a stress response, or is that a direct stimulation from the nicotine?
It says, contrary to most abused drugs with increased dopamine and decreased prolactin, nicotine concentration correlates with increased prolactin release. So I think it's just the nicotine itself.
Right, okay. So it's a direct action then.
Yeah. Huh. That's wild. That's interesting. Interesting tidbit. Thank you, Mr. Chambers. All right. Oh, cool. Yes. Yes, Dave?
I learned today.
Me too.
Stop.
How does Dave say ZZ Top?
Same as everybody else. ZZ Top.
Okay.
I don't say ZZ Top because ZZ Top is their name.
That's a good one.
Fucking pop bangles.
Okay. How do you equate long and short ester dosages? If I'm taking, let's say, 200 milligrams of test E weekly, how much test prop would be, or prop, wouldn't be needed to equate to that dose? I recall Dave saying it would take, he says double the dose of prop, but that doesn't sound right to me.
No, look, I may have said stuff in the past and been wrong, so I freely admit that. It's difficult. So 200 meg is roughly going to produce
180, 160, I don't know, 170 milligrams.
Probably somewhere in the region of about 50 nmol. 45, 50 nmol.
Okay.
So if we work on blood plasma, the problem with prop as a plasma profile is that the initial spike's quite high. So you'd probably have to go daily, and then you'd probably be looking at around 20, 25 milligrams daily. So it would actually be slightly less. I'm not sure.
Well, because you got to figure, too, that you're getting more milligrams of actual hormone in the shorter ester, right?
You are. I think also what you're going to find, I'm doing lots of calculations in my head here.
Okay.
It will change depending on the total dosage. So if you were using a much higher dose of test nth, so let's swap this and say you're going to 500 milligrams of test. So I'd expect to see nmol levels 100, 130, somewhere around that region. To achieve that with prop, you're probably going to be up at a much higher dose. So I would suspect then you're going to be pushing into sort of 100 milligrams daily. So the total dosing over the week would be greater. But I think at the lower doses, it's much more even.
So with ester weight, just looking online at the stuff that's been regurgitated a million times, it says test prop, you get 80 milligrams of actual prop.
82, 82, yeah.
Versus test and ethate, you get 70.
Yeah, 70, 72, 73 is all varying around there.
So it's not that far off, you know what I mean?
No, I think the difference between dosing increases quite significantly when you start getting into the higher doses.
That would make sense, yeah.
I could work it out, but it's a lot of maths. Calculate the half-lives and go from there. But it is a lot of maths and start to calculate the cumulative effect.
Yeah.
But I think, to be honest, if you're talking to equate to 200, from blood work I remember, I think doses of around 20, 25 milligrams per day equated to what we'd expect to see from about 200 meg a week.
The Deca Ester is 62 milligrams out of 100 of actual hormone out of 100 milligrams of product.
Yeah, because you've got to take into account the ester weight. The longer acting ester, the more weight it occupies in the total milligram of the drug.
Yeah.
It's a bigger compound. The other thing you've got to remember is that the difference between prop and nth. So say you took someone who had no drugs at all, you started them on 25 milligram of prop, you would be at that equivalent level 2 days. If you were doing it with nth, you'd probably have about 4 or 5 weeks before you plateaued and reached that same level. So because of the half-life of nth, you've got this layering effect, so it builds up to its peak plasma over a few weeks, whereas prop will hit its peak plasma most likely within the first week to 10 days.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, first week.
All right. What else do we have here? We had one about IGF. We've got, I'll jump to the live stream here because I know that Gamboni Law had one. He said, great show. Increasing hit cardio, says more reps, sets, or decreasing calories, 300 a day. If you're already holding at 10 to 11% and but you want to live at sub 10%, what would cause less muscle loss / size?
I would go the increased output at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I would wonder how much cardio are you already doing? You know what I mean?
That as well, yeah.
The way my brain always looks at it is that, let's say that through the diet, we have these different tools for fat loss. One of them is cardio. Within the cardio button, there's a subcategory of slow, steady state versus HIIT. Then we have the nutrition, and within the nutrition are the different macros. And then and also having like high days, low days, and then like cycling, and then the gear side, which is mainly going to be fat burners, right? So and I want to try to toggle through all of these buttons. I don't want to just keep hitting the drug button, keep hitting the T3 button over and over again. You're not going to get the same results as if you kind of work all of them, right? So, I would wonder how many times has he already hit the cardio button to get here?
There is that, yes. But I do think there comes a point where you can't look at further food reductions. Or the impact of further food reductions is much more significant on muscle mass.
Yeah. And sometimes you have to, like sometimes it's like, well, if you're going to do that, that's the sacrifice you have to make, you know what I mean, in order to get to that condition. And the answer is build more muscle in the off season.
Yeah, there's, it all depends on how extreme you're going to go and lots of other factors as well, doesn't it? Some people are limited in their cardio. They can't do any more than they're doing, so you have no alternative choice, etc., etc.
All right. What else do we have here? How about this one? He says, wrong question. How about this one? Hey, Scott and Dave, question for the next show. Can DHT derivatives like Mast or Primo be effectively used to mitigate estrogenic and prolactin-induced side effects in users of nandrolone who are sensitive to such issues as gyno and sexual dysfunction? Thanks in advance. I feel like this kind of ties in with that previous question related to P5P, doesn't it?
So you're not going to regulate prolactin with Mast and Primo. You can, to some extent, regulate estrogen, yes. Primo having a direct anti-estrogen, Mast being very person-specific, but definitely a SERM factor from Mast. In some people, a anti-estrogen effect as well. As we've already discussed, prolactin doesn't cause gyno. Estrogen does, but prolactin will create an environment when you are much, much more sensitive to gyno. Prolactin will lower DHT. It will also increase the receptor sensitivity and the number of receptors of estrogen at the breast tissue, making otherwise normal estrogen levels be impacting. Hence why prolactin has got this reputation to cause gyno. Lowering of prolactin will then obviously lower the number of ERs and increase DHT, which is a defensive action against gyno at the breast. And then as a result, people have come to this conclusion that prolactin causes gyno. It does, but it's a secondary action, not a primary action. It doesn't happen directly. It creates an environment that makes you much more sensitive to it. Ultimately, it still boils down to estrogen management, but there does become a point where any further estrogen management becomes counterproductive for what you're trying to do, and so therefore we rely on prolactin management as well. Done. So, yes, Mast can. This is where you got to be careful, and this is where I have a big beef about this. You can use Primo as an anti-estrogen drug, yes. If your cycle was destined to be, for argument's sake, let's say you're going medium test, high Deca, so you're going to do 300 tests, 600 Deca. We're in an environment where obviously prolactin is definitely going to be a concern. Estrogen maybe not as much, but there's definitely going to be estrogenic impact there. I wouldn't add Primo to that stack just to control estrogen. I would use an AI. Simple as that.
Yeah.
I'd use an AI.
Yeah.
If, however, your goal, your stack was going to be 300 tests, 300 Deca, and another compound, then I would look at either Primo or Masteron as being that third compound, with then having that added bonus of some estrogen management thrown in for free.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't look at increasing my overall anabolic and androgenic intake purely to manage estrogen. People have this big beef against AIs. And it's like, trust me, taking 500 or a gram of Primo, however mild that drug is definitely going to be more impacting on your fucking health than dropping 0.5 milligram of Adex twice a week.
Yeah, for the duration of the cycle.
Yes. So, you know, this big AI hate campaign is just led by, as far as I'm concerned, people that are being very singular and narrow in their perspective and not looking at the whole picture and totality of what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that some of it comes from the TRT world, where it would make sense to not have to rely on Arimidex for the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
I agree.
But we're talking a 12-week cycle.
I'm also a big promotion within TRT that you really shouldn't be having to use AIs in TRT. And if you are, then you're probably pushing your luck or your TRT dose.
You know, Dave, you were ahead of me on that one. I 100% agree with you, but it took me longer to get there because I wanted to keep the cruise dose, the TRT plus dose. I wanted to keep that higher, feeling that more hormone year round would be beneficial for me maintaining muscle and possibly even growing between cycles, et cetera, et cetera.
And it's logical to think that. I mean, knowing what we know, it's a logical thought process to think, yes, that lowering the dose is actually quite counterintuitive. It sort of seems like it's going to have the opposite of what you want it to do, but actually, it generally, as you've experienced, works out.
Yeah, because it ended up leading to just more side effects and, like, you know, the need for an AI, the need for phlebotomy, further affected cholesterol levels. When I found that being able to, for periods of time, being able to maintain muscle size, strength, everything on actual TRT, which is what I do with a lot of the guys I work with now, and especially I think it's where you're at level-wise. If you're James Hollingshead, then maybe we're talking a different conversation. But until you get to be James Hollingshead size, let's be realistic. You know, is kind of my thought.
Yeah, I mean, I've spoke to people recently whose TRT is 500 milligrams a week.
Yeah,
and I can't help, and people won't like this, and it will make people feel uncomfortable. But I can't help that a lot of this TRT plus is fueled by people that just want justification for using more drugs and to feel that they're not being abusive in doing so because it's, I've got more muscle, I need more drugs, or it's a sports TRT, or it's TRT plus, or it's a cruise, not a TRT. And all these various words and justifications just to be able to say, you know, yeah, it's okay for me to take more.
Yeah.
No, it's not. Really, I mean, what I do find, though, is older gentlemen seem to tolerate the high cruise doses better than younger people do, or middle people do.
Really? See, I find older guys tend to get higher hematocrit.
Yeah, see, I haven't seen such a major issue, but I suppose it's very lifestyle-based as well, and where they are in stuff. Maybe it's contributing factors with stuff like snoring and breathing and all that crap as well.
True.
That comes with age, because I don't see the adulteration of other factors like estrogen being such a concern in older guys when they're pushing the dose up a little bit.
I agree with that. I've seen that as well. They're less sensitive.
They seem to be less sensitive to E2. They seem to be less sensitive to HDL adulteration. Maybe blood thickening. Maybe I need to take a second look there, but because it's not something I'd really focused on that much. I was more looking at the hormone adulterations.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I feel like, and I could see it in my, just using myself, early cycle experience, I was a lot more sensitive to estrogen and gyno, stuff like that, than I eventually, like, it was like nothing. You know, I remember having my estrogen, it was between 200 and 300, I can't remember the number, because I wasn't using an AI, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't even know. I had no idea, you know.
Yep. And that's why I've got gone.
Oh, that's why you what?
I was just saying that's why I believe in not just treating the numbers, but treating the symptoms and the numbers at the same time. You know, having a balanced view on what's going on.
Yeah. All right, see if we can squeeze one more in here really quick. And then we also do have an important subject left that comes at the end of each of our episodes. If we just want to increase T3, why do people solely stick to T4, especially when it comes to a cycle with HGH? For example, 750 test, 500 mass, 6 IU growth, 200 T4. Why don't they just add the more powerful T3, which is actually their goal?
I would say that's a very valid question, and I questioned it myself a little bit. So, GH increases the conversion of T4 to T3. So, as a result, you tend to see slightly lowered T4 levels in somebody that's taking GH.
Yeah.
The relationship between T4 and T3 is important. However, negatively, it generally happens when T4 is high and T3 is low. So if you're not getting the conversion of T4 to T3, you can suffer with quite high depressive-like feelings, and they can be very, very impacting. Like, I don't want to get out of bed and live anymore sort of feelings.
Yeah.
Whereas if T3 is elevated over T4, doesn't seem to be in most people any negative feelings coming from that. So people have jumped on this that you need T4 when using growth hormone because T4 lowers and T3 increases. Personally, I don't think you really do. I don't think there's any real world difference, but it's not really going to do you any harm if you take it either. So when you're in a cut phase, if you're wanting to increase T3 levels, I would always go for using T3. But there is much more common approach now to use T3 and T4. I don't think it's necessary. I think personally it's over-sciencing the problem. But there you go.
I think there's something, and I can't explain it, but I've heard it explain something in the cascade of the deiodinase enzymes that is beneficial. And I can tell you just through my own experience with guys that are in off-season using it's sometimes like we'll see low T4, high T3, or decent T3, higher end but still in the normal range, but then low T4 because of the quicker conversion due to growth. Let's say that we needed to use a decent dose of T4, like it might have taken 100 micrograms, let's just say, to get it back into range. Even if we just use 50, I found there's a benefit there to just the look and their ability to handle food. I can't quite explain it, but I have seen, I mean, I'll go as far because I'll just kind of call it like magic. I don't know. Because I'm not a doctor. I can't explain it. But in certain cases, I've seen it work really well when somebody is really pushing for size. They're training really hard. We're pushing food really hard. And there's that medical evaluation, we see it. I wouldn't say just add T4 and you're going to have a magical off season, but I've seen it for guys that did have low T4 that they just have a more productive off season if we add it in.
I've seen lowish as in sort of lower limit T4 is 12. So say T4 being 8.88,
okay,
9, 10. I've seen that effect, whereas TSH is not responding and T3 is upper end, so 5-ish. I've seen that quite often without GH and just from anabolic use alone.
Really?
So there is some impact. There's now, I believe, I'll get this right, HCG, or is it LH? No, it might be LH, is very similar in compound to FSH.
Huh. Okay.
So the endocrinologist I was talking to about this, because I was trying to get to the bottom, is why do I see this T4 low in anabolic users when they're not using GH?
Okay.
And they theorized that because I believe it's LH and TSH are very, very similar in their structure, that there may be an element of crossover.
And the fact that LH is suppressed might actually impact the amount of T4 production.
Okay. Interesting.
I don't know. I've not got any science to back that up. This was just a conversation with an endocrinologist, actually from King's College.
Okay.
But they felt that there may be some influence of lowered LH that was causing an impact in thyroid production as well. But I would say probably 1 in 20 people we see on cycle will have slightly lower T4.
How about this one, Dave? Thoughts on Proviron? Is it pointless for a cycle? That was in the live stream. If you're going to throw it in there real quick. We kind of talked about that last week. I thought you nailed it pretty much, man. You mentioned... What?
Yeah, who?
Who? You mentioned you mentioned Proviron was more beneficial in lower dose cycles. The higher you went, the harder it is to manage estrogen with it.
Yeah, Proviron's the mildest of our AIs. Yes, it does. It does lower SHBG, but I mean, you're talking in most cases, a cycle is going to put SHBG sort of 10, 15, somewhere around there. Add Proviron, you might push it down to 7. It's not going to have a huge impact. Yeah. Some people do report that they feel better adding Proviron in. I can't explain why, because from a numbers point of view, it doesn't show that there would be any significant impact. But as I've said before, it's numbers and how you feel that need to be considered. So if people are reporting feeling better on Proviron with a better libido and just a general better well-being, then I don't see any reason why not using it. But it's not a particularly effective AI, and it definitely wouldn't be something I would look to as choice as an AI control. But if you're putting it in for the general, it makes me feel better, then I'm difficult to argue with that.
People used to talk about getting a hardening effect from it, back in 2008, 10, 12, 14 era. I remember like everybody had a big old bag of Proviron for their contest prep.
Yeah, I mean, I say it has that subtle anti-estrogen effect. It is an anabolic, but it doesn't affect muscle tissue, so I can't see there being a direct action there.
Lame.
Mm-mm.
All right.
It's probably the worst anabolic ever created, to be honest.
That sounds like a title for a show. The worst. Today we're going to talk about the worst anabolic ever created, guys.
Well, it's an anabolic steroid. It is an anabolic steroid, but it just fucking metabolized by muscle tissue, so it doesn't get to do its job.
Let me make a note. Well, that sounds like a good future topic. What kind of worldly advice do you have for us today, Dave? For Uncle Dave's advice.
I thought about this one.
Did you really?
No, about 3 minutes ago I did.
When I mentioned it earlier, I was like, we have a special segment at the end. Dave was crapping his pants, and he's like, I got to think of something.
We are a product of our choices.
Okay.
As a result of that, everything can change. It's whether you have the courage to make that change.
We're a product of our choices. As a result of that, everything can change. Yeah, so we can basically, we're the captain of our own lives.
To a very large extent. Much more than I think we actually like to accept. Because if we accept that, then we have to take responsibility for all the shit in our lives that we don't like.
That's true too, isn't it?
So we will tend to say, oh, no, it's not. It's because of this. It's because of that. It's because of... Well, really? If it is, then why is this person not having that issue? Or why is that person... Everybody has shit. I don't care how successful they are. They all have shit. It can vary. It can be very different. I have a friend who's financially incredibly successful. I wouldn't have his personal life given.
Yeah, they don't post that stuff on Instagram.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So it's. He's a multi-millionaire. He's incredibly wealthy.
And then I know another friend who has a wonderful home life and is extremely successful financially. But then he's also like, he feels very unfulfilled.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I don't know what to do. I've bought the nice stuff. It doesn't have any. It's empty. Having the latest car or the best of this, it's empty. It doesn't give him any fulfillment. So, even people who appear to be super successful and super happy in the relationships, and they may well be, they still have problems. They still have things in their life that don't work for them. You're not unique. Life doesn't hate you.
Yeah.
The truth is you hate you because you keep making shit decisions.
Too, there's always going to be some things that we can't control or change in our circumstances.
But there's always things you can do to improve that as well.
But that's what I was going to say, because I remember having a conversation with Shelby when I was trying to grow as much muscle as possible, and I was trying to problem solve a particular part of my day, and it was after our workout. And he said, well, you could eat this after you train, and then eat this 2 hours later. And I said, oh, but I can't, because I have to do this. I can't do that. I can't do this. And he said, okay, said, I'm going to point something out. He's like, you're focusing on the things that you can't do. Let's look at the things that you can do. And I think it's because I felt overwhelmed at the moment. Mm-hmm. Like, oh man, I can't, I'm unable. I can't. I hear that with clients once in a while. And when I hear it, I will gently point it out to them, because when Shelby pointed it out to me, it made a whole lot of sense. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah. There's two ways I could be looking at this right now. Well, what can I do? Instead of looking at things you can't do, let's look at the things you can do, because you can. I think that's good advice, Dave. I think you nailed it. You did a really good job with this one, thinking it up in 3 minutes out. Good job.
It
was good.
I have clients, I have no time. Okay. I'm really, really busy. Okay. Right. I work a 50-hour week, or I work a 60-hour week. And I'm like, there's still time if you want it. If you really want what you're doing, there's still time. Yeah, that's a longish working week, but it's not ridiculously long. I mean, you can still make time. Yeah, you won't have social time, or you'll have very limited social time.
Yeah.
But so it all becomes then priorities of your choices. What's more important to you?
Yeah. I work with
sorry.
I was going to say, I work with a guy that he's got like, I can't remember, it's a ton of kids, like 6, 7 kids. He's got like a dozen dogs. They've got pets on the farm, and he's got a full-time job. Plus he's like, I think it's military reserves. So then he'll have to like go do drills on the weekend. Guess what? He's in contest prep and making it work.
Yeah. So a lot of it is, one, do you really want what you're claiming you want?
Yeah.
And I mean, I get a lot of shit for being fat. And the bottom line, yeah, I'd love to be slim. I'm not going to deny it. I would. And it'd be better for my health. But my brain isn't at that point where the effort required to do it is perceived as being rewarding enough. And until I can switch that mindset, and I'm more focused on everything else I do, which is more for other people than I am, because I spent years being selfish. I spent years focusing on me, and everything evolved around my meals. Everything evolved around my training. And so I don't lose the weight, because I'm not willing at this stage to put the effort in that's required. It's not that I can't do it. I'm just not willing to do it. And that's where a lot of people struggle to say, no, it's not that I can't. It's that I'm not willing to.
Yeah, if you can admit that, for a lot of people, it's a step forward.
Not everybody is going to be a bodybuilder. You can train and enjoy it. You don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to be lean. It's a balance. There is, and it's a difficult conversation, because there is this balance between being fit and healthy and it being productive for you as a human being,
and this being obsessed and it becoming a negative impact in your life because it's damaging relationships, it's damaging you socially or whatever else it may be.
Yeah.
And then you're in a perma misery because you're not achieving these preconceived goals that you think you need to be. I don't need to look like a bodybuilder to feel like I've got worth. I did at one point. I very much at one point thought I wasn't valuable if I wasn't X, Y, Z. Whereas now it's like, well, if you don't value me for me as a person and you're so judgmental because I'm fat, then I'm not really bothered about you being in my life. So see ya.
Yeah.
But that's separate to the health, and the health is a whole different argument. There is a cause to be healthy and everything else.
Are you doing your cardio?
I'm a fuck.
Dave. We want a good part cardio report next week. We want to keep you around for a long time.
I'm starting to. Yes, I'm going to start it this week.
We need to get a bike that connects to a pedal in your boat. And if you want to take your boat anywhere, you got to get on the bike and pedal it. How about that?
No, I mean, obviously last week I was down on the boat, and then I've got a trapped nerve in my neck that keeps playing up, and that's played up this week. So
you get in the river and swim a lap.
You get in the river Thames and swim. Jesus
it's good.
Christ.
It's good. The English are clean people. They're.
That is not a clean river.
We have a few of those here in Detroit too. I know what you mean. We have some nuclear power plants here too. There's actually one area they call it. I think Clean Water Beach, maybe. I can't remember, but it's an area near the Detroit River. I can't remember. It's down south by the power plant. They have a nuclear power plant, Fermi 1 and Fermi 2, and they use water to cool the machines, and all that water is getting pumped out from, I think it's Lake St. Clair, and because of that area is warmer, so everybody goes swimming there. They dock their boat and swim.
The guy Phil that came down to teach us, part of it was going through boat maintenance and things you should do.
Yeah.
And there's a thing called a weed hatch, and it's in the engine bay and it's above your prop. So you open the weed hatch to check your prop, make sure it's not picked anything up.
Yeah.
And he was giving us the list of things that he's had to cut off his prop, like trousers, tracksuit bottoms, quilts, plastic bags, a whole manner of crap that he's had, belts, all sorts of stuff that he's had to cut off. And it's like, yeah, these are our clean waterways.
Dude, you could probably do some serious magnet fishing in those rivers in the Thames. You might find like guns from, hundreds of years ago and old coins, stuff like that.
They're more down by the estuary, more down in London, but I believe you have to apply for a license.
Oh, okay.
But then you can go down and treasure hunt, and people do it. I mean, the Thames where I am is quite shallow. It's not super deep where I am.
We've been watching, I think it's called Destination Unknown. I think that's it. It's with Josh Gates. And he goes and explores, and he'll go to like, maybe it's Egypt, and they find like a new tomb, and they're like digging the sand out and looking at it, or they're like at a battlefield, and they get like the metal detectors out, and they'll find like they found a Viking burial, for instance, and they're looking for coins, and they find a sword, stuff like. Man, I would love to go metal detecting, and I would love to do it in England, because you guys probably just have all sorts of shit under the ground over there,
Oh, people do find stuff. There's definitely a healthy treasure hunt click over here. People do find stuff. It was a farmer found a hoard of gold coins in his field.
Yeah, of course, it'd be awesome to find gold coins, but I just mean like finding ancient old stuff would be crazy,
Yeah, but the other thing is, if it's 200 years old, to you, it's old stuff.
Yeah, it's super old, dude. That's what I'm saying. So you guys go way back,
I mean, we were looking at buildings in Henley that were built in 1503.
Where I'm like, oh my God, here's a bottle cap from the 50s.
There was a cottage we were looking at. It had been built in 1503. Jeez. And then in 17-something, it was converted into 5 cottages, which it still exists as 5 today. They were
wow.
tiny. But and they were restored in 2000 and something.
Where's that at?
Henley.
Henley, is that south?
Yeah, Henley on the Thames. Yeah.
Okay. That sounds like a place to be. All right, guys. Well, listen, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Dave, Pillars of Strength, when's that coming up?
So I've changed it. So what I do now is I do the PED course, and then if people want to stay on for the last 2 weeks to do the extras to make it pillars, they can do. So the next one is proposed to start, I think we're looking at somewhere around the 10th of October.
Okay. And how many weeks is the course total if they do the complete pillars?
If they do the complete pillars, we're looking at 7. If they just do PEDs, we're looking at 5.
Okay. Okay. So you can sign up for that, guys. And how do they reach out to you for that?
Just contact me through either IG or Facebook or something.
We got Tanya Miller still with us. Tanya, did you finish your cardio yet? I mean, if not, she's got a lot of cardio to do, man. Let me tell you that right now. Because we've been at this for an hour plus. Anyway, we appreciate everybody tuning in. And like we said at the beginning, you guys can go to evalbloodanalysis.com to get your lab work done by Dave. And you can go to STROM Sports Nutrition to get some great health and performance supplements, including health stacks for when you're on cycle. You guys need that. And they have joint support for your dogs. Can you believe that? You should get that stuff for your dogs. Love your dogs as much as you love yourself. And TrueNutrition.com. Use our code ThinkOver there. Get all your high-quality carb powders, including cheap carb powders. If you don't have a lot of money, you can get Carbo Load. It's super cheap. It's like $10 a bag. You get a ton of servings out of it. Oh my God. Oh, she only had 10 minutes left. So she's just been hanging with us, and she's eaten and started her coffee. Got a late start here, 11:43 in the morning here for Tanya. Good for you. Enjoy yourself. She stays up late though, guys. And of course, supplementsource.ca for Canadians. Great deals that change week to week, including some All Max. Right now, pre-workout was $10 on closeout. So go grab that stuff and leave a comment to them. You know, when you place your order, additional notes, tell them we love Scott and Dave over at Drugs and Stuff podcast on Think Big. Of course, if you're listening on iTunes, leave us a good 5-star review. In the month of September, you will be automatically entered into a contest to win a free t-shirt. And if you didn't send us your transformations yet, you got a little bit more time. We need them now, though. So like this is the deadline. You got to get off the treadmill, take those pictures, and send them over, and we'll get those all put together in the next couple of weeks. For another episode of Drugs and Stuff with Dave Crosland, we'll see you soon. Thanks, Dave. All right. Tanya said she got 9 hours of sleep, man. It's living, if you ask me.